collar like this one, which is really, you can see the difference here. It's quite significant. Now, I'd like to show 3 shirts, same pattern, different treatments. Okay. These 2 are fabric from Fabrique. Okay, so there's this shirt, there's this shirt, and there's this shirt. This is a vintage Viella that I bought in 1987 at Harrods in London. And this used to be a skirt. Remember we used to wear those long skirts? Well, it was hung in my closet 5 years, and 6 years, I don't know, so I decided enough, so I cut it up, and it became this shirt. But if you look at it closely, can you see what's wrong with the plaid of the body?
It's not matched at the center.
It's matched this way.
Well, but the other one.
Yeah, right. See the difference? It's because I didn't have enough, and I fit.
But who would ever see it?
Yeah, so, at some point say, just get over it, all right? Do your best, and then just say, I'm gonna make it work. And then this is the complementary piece that I have. Okay, so what you see here is, this is a base fabric for the bodice, and then a collar and a collar stand, all in a complementary fabric.
What is that little placket that you showed very briefly on the back?
Oh, I'll do that in a minute.
Thank you.
Okay. And then now this one, this is turned out to be not wildly successful. I'm not crazy about it. I saw this collar on a shirt at Neiman Marcus, and you wear it like a shirt with just a collared band, but it has a little collar on it. And so this I actually wear as kind of a shirt jacket with t-shirts. And but you'll see now, this one has a collar on the outside, a different fabric on the inside. The collar band is the base fabric. The collar band on the inside is the contrast. And then this is a sew-on band. So on the inside, both the insides have the contrasting fabric.
Very cute.
And then the pockets, pockets are great too. You have lots of design opportunities for pockets. And I put on the second page, here's kind of a compendium of things to do. You can just sort of go down there. If you can't think of these things, oh, I never thought about a, pocket that's round, or a pocket so you can change the shape. But these pockets I have are just sort of basic, sort of 50s style men's shirts. And then I put that on the inside. So a lot of stuff you only see, and then inside of the shirt is a patterned yoke. Now this shirt uses a complementary, not a contrasting. This complements, but I really sort of favor geometrics and a flower or a print. I think that you can get really lovely combinations. This one, and the placket and the inside of the cuff on that one. This one does it similarly, but you can tell it blends. It doesn't sort of stand out so much. This pocket, I put the pocket on the same plaid so that you really don't see it. And then the flap, I used the contrasting on a bias, and it's the same thing underneath. Okay, we'll come back to that little thing on the back that you want to know about. This one has the same design details, but all the fabric's the same. So it becomes just about manipulating the plaid. And this is really fun. If you, I don't wear a lot of plaid shirts, but I saw this here and I thought, wow. Plus it turns out you hardly have to iron the thing, unlike many of the other shirts I have. So this becomes about manipulating the plaid. So the collar is on the bias. The yoke is on the bias. The pockets on the bias, and this is great if you just are like, I just can't deal with matching this plaque, this pocket. This one was a little bit of a challenge because it was ever so slightly off grain and I couldn't get it straight. So it was a real challenge. And sometimes you get a plaid and it is just like 1/8 of an inch off grain, and no matter how many times you just can't get it. Work it if you want the pocket to sit on the grain, give it your best shot, and at some point say, move on, all right? And then you can put it on the bias. It looks beautiful, and you don't have to worry about it. And then I put the flap on the straight of the grain.
And look how that's made.
And then underneath this is bias. And then I put the placket on the bias. But to make this work, the rest of the shirt, it attaches to the shirt on the straight of the grain. And I've done this where I've had the placket both inside and out on the bias. And all you have to do is just interface it on the straight of the grain with a good quality iron-on interfacing. And then you're fine. But just all these plackets need to be interfaced because they carry the weight of the buttons and they carry the weight of the buttonholes. And there's a lot of thread in a good buttonhole. So, yeah. And then, what did I do? Oh, here. Cuff on the bias, placket on the bias. Okay. So it's all one big thing. Now, this shirt, same thing. Yeah, this is the same pattern. This is a shirt that I made last year for the holidays. This is wool. This is a wool broadcloth, 100% wool. I washed it in cold water, and I continue to wash this shirt. And same with the Viella. You can't buy Viella anymore, so if you ever see vintage Viella, buy it. It's 50% and 50% wool. It's really lovely fabric. This one, I put the bias here. The cuff is on the straight of the grain, but I thought, I'll just try to put the sleeve on the bias. And it has done really well. It has done really well. And I think which then meant I put the placket on the straight of the grain. So, I mean, it just sort of like begs for experimentation. And then I put welt pockets. These are not functioning welt pockets because they droop, but there's a pocket bag in here. And I wanted to try this. This is the first time I'd ever done welt pockets in a shirt like that. It's tricky unless your shirt is dark, the fabric's dark, because you can see through it. If you look at this, because I put the the yoke on the straight of the grain inside, if you look, you can see through. There's bleed through. And I just said, no, I'm gonna go with it anyway. So just be aware of that. If you have too much bleed through, then put a neutral solid in here so that you can get away with doing that. Now, this one there's always room to do something with the back. And so I gathered this. Now, this shirt, no, not that one. This one. Same shirt. I added there's a seam, not a seam, but I added down here I think it's, let me see how much it is. It's about 1.5 inches pleat. All right, goes all the way down. And this little bias thing here, you can make this and you could stitch it to here and it would keep it from flaying open in the back. But what I did is I made this little bias thing. This is the first time I'd done this. I made this shirt probably 20 years ago, but it was the first time I'd done it. And I thought it would be a good treatment for this one. So I just cut this little piece and then sewed it on. And what it does is it anchors inside. It anchors the pleat inside. And it makes a really nice soft treatment. And these shirts, you can't really tell, these are also slightly curved here. They come in about 1/2 inch. And so and then I take out quite a bit of ease, to get them to fit. For me, this is a sort of boxing. And this you just have to keep trying with your muslins until you get it so that it hangs nicely to the body. This is a drop-shouldered sleeve. Now this one, I wanted to try, years ago I had seen on a 1940s David Doubt jacket, this edging that was on the outside of the lapel, but not on the inside. It looked like binding, and I thought, how does this work? So anyway, I figured it out, and so you'll see that the bias binding is here, but not here. And the bias binding is here, but not there. And so to get there, I had to do a few little samples. I'm a great sample maker. I sample all of this stuff. For this shirt, this was the collar sample, and then this is, so I have tons of these. So, because I take the basic patterns and then I deal with little samples if I'm going to change the collar. I don't mock up the whole shirt again. That's ridiculous. So I just do, and often I don't do this until I'm ready to do the collar. My typical pattern is to not cut the whole shirt at once. So I lay the fabric out, I put the general pieces, the front, the back, the sleeves, just to make sure I've got enough fabric. And then I will cut the front and the back, and I'll sew that up, and the placket, and I'll get that much done. And then I go to the collar next. Oh, and I've done the pockets. So I cut these as I go. Because once I get this part done, I put it on my dress form, and then I audition different pocket shapes, and I audition different uses of the fabric and other trims or something that I'm doing. And then I cut that out. And then I do the same thing with the sleeves. I didn't decide to put these sleeves on the bias until minutes before I cut it. I go, oh my God, I got plenty of fabric. Why don't I just try this? So I did.
Could you walk us through how you put that bias tape on?
Yeah. What you do is and this is all about measuring, that's all it is. So imagine that seam allowance here, all right? You know how wide you want this. I wanted this about 1/4 inch. And then you have 1/4 inch here, and then you have your seam allowance. So you sew this on the outer cuff or the outer collar, and it extends to the seam allowance. Then you place the under piece, so you can see how it's stitched on. And then, so this is actually, this then is just part of the outer collar. That's all it is. It's so simple. It's so simple. The trick is, though, fabric can't be too heavy. This is just on the edge of working, just on the edge of being, because this gets a little bulky and it's hard to get something smooth. But a cotton weight like this, it's really, really easy. So I'll be happy to pass this around. and I wanted to try the shape. I kind of favor this shape of a cuff. I just like it, that little slit. So you could